So, Fireside Chat. Personally, I always find Fireside Chats very exciting. I hope you share the same feeling. Opportunities and challenges, diving into the evolving landscape of ICT, moderated by His Excellency Karim Kawar, President of Kawar Group, with Her Excellency Ms. Deema AlYahya, Secretary General of Digital Corporation Organization. Welcome.
Welcome everyone, especially our guests from the region and abroad. It's a real honor and a privilege to have you here. His Majesty says this is the lowest spot on earth, and from here we can only move up. So we're very optimistic and looking forward. I remember 25 years ago when we established Intaj. We've certainly come a long way since 1999. It is my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce our special guest, who has recently returned from New York, where she successfully launched the groundbreaking Digital Economy Navigator at the UN Summit for the Future. Her leadership and collaboration have been instrumental in advancing the Global Digital Compact and the Pact for the Future. As a proud Saudi woman, she stands at the forefront of a major global organization championing digital prosperity through a dynamic partnership between governments, the private sector, and society. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to the Secretary General of the Digital Cooperation Organization, Her Excellency Deema AlYahya. Your Excellency, it's a pleasure to have you. And the first question on our mind, as many startups in the room, how can startups go from local to regional to global? And what does that require on a regional collaboration level?
Well, at first, thank Your Excellency for that humbled introduction. I'm very humbled and thankful and very grateful to be here. In the 10th edition of MENA ICT, seeing year over year the growth and the spirit and the energy just going in to the room fills us with pride and joy to see such innovation growing from the region, especially from the beautiful and cherished Jordan. Going back to startups, Your Excellency, and focusing on the innovators, we're very much fortunate that we have a young population. If we're going to look at the MENA region, 70% of the MENA region is under the age of 35. That by itself is a competitive advantage, gives us an opportunity to create more local content and innovation. And this is where, if we see digital economy, which is the economy of the future, growing very rapidly. Last year alone, it was 16% of the overall GDP. That is all run by innovators and innovation. Now, that has a potential or abundance of opportunities. Now, what we need to do is looking into our innovators, providing them the opportunities. Now, you've mentioned, Your Excellency, how would they scale? They would scale by getting more consumers and getting a bigger market for them to access, as well as making technology available. But can that be possible with only the borders where they innovated in? Is it enough as a market as well? So there are several challenges that startups are facing for them to grow and contribute positively to the digital economy. Number one is regulation and policy. For them to move from one country to another, that's a very big challenge. Average of 18 months just to move from one border to another. Why? Is because every single country has its own regulation, own policy, own licensing, and ways of doing business. And that gets the startup or the company more busy with that expansion rather than focusing on the innovation itself. Another thing is when it comes to talent as well. the diversification of talent, and the competitive advantage of one country to another. One country has the potential and capital, another country has the brain power, another country has more sectorial focus. Here is where does the startup get the data? For them to know where to expand to, and where are the consumers for that market. So the challenges of regulation, the challenges of talent, the challenges of accessibility of data, all of that hardens that ability to expand and to scale. And this is where, in the era of digital right now, we're looking at, as Mr. Amjad mentioned, it's borderless. It does not know any borders. Therefore, we have to work on how are we going to unify and or break those borders and open a market where startups or companies can seamlessly do business very easily. And that not only will help in the growth of the economy, but it will make more variety and options of technology as well available to countries. In DCO alone, we represent 16 member states. That is equal to a market of 800 million in population. That's an amazing market for any startup.
Definitely, thank you. How do you see public-private partnerships playing a role in that aspect?
Well, I think Your Excellency, it plays a big role, and I think not only in terms of the module itself, we have an opportunity to innovate in the models of the Triple P. Now in the digital era, we do need to minimize or reduce the communication gap between the government and the private sector. At the end of the day, the private sector is the engine that is driving the economy, and the government is the enabler. So therefore, we have to bridge that communication gap, create new models for them to work together. And if you would allow me to give you an example, for instance, of new ways of introducing Triple P models. So as one of our member countries, Rwanda, for instance, and whom are more than 98% connected or as internet coverage, the thing is that, and all, of course, government is online. They are very much they don't like it when I call them the Estonia of Africa, but I do see them that way, that 13% of citizens only are using the internet. And why is that? It's because of the cost and the affordability of devices and services. Although you have another member country, which is Pakistan, and another member country, Oman, whom are a maker environment. And here is where you have companies that produce low-cost devices. And by creating new models between the countries, we have enabled these companies to create a subscription-based modules for the devices in Rwanda. But here is where you help the companies to grow in their countries, and you helped in solving a challenge in another country.
Excellent. Thank you for that. How do you see we should be addressing the global challenges of data privacy, cybersecurity, and ethical AI?
Well, that's a great important question. I do think that when it comes to there are these challenges, it always goes into regulation. We have to regulate when it comes to data sovereignty. We have to look at data privacy. When it comes to AI, it's a big topic right now. How are we going to regulate it? The thing is, the question that I always ask is, let's look at who is going to use the technology itself right now? Are we regulating a technology that we still do not know if we're going to use it or not? Are we going to have accessibility? Are we going to have local content for that technology itself? But if we take AI, for instance, it always comes to mind where the energy that it will consume for us to just use this technology, that is a breakthrough when it comes to increasing the productivity of our lives, work, efficiency, quality of our lives as well. But if we're going to run a ChatGPT query that will consume 25 times energy of a Google search, if we're going to generate an AI-powered image that is going to consume more energy than your smartphone. So that comes to a question where if developed countries are facing challenges with energy, how is developing countries are going to afford even using AI? So the challenge is not only in terms of regulation, but are we creating the right infrastructure when it comes to computing power, when it comes to brain power and skills, let alone the regulation and policy. Now, if we look at the regulation and policy, at the end of the day, we need to be improbable. We need to speak one language. Therefore, are we working on a national regulation that is applicable on a regional level and then applicable on a global level? And this is where the miss is right now. And we see a very big opportunity in bridging that gap when it comes to bringing the private sector actually to co-create and co-design these policies and regulations.
Absolutely, and I think in our region we can capitalize on renewable energy as well, solar in particular, and I think we can contribute towards the 2040 goal of cutting carbon emissions. Your Excellency, you mentioned in the Digital Economy Navigator, although I don't think it was intended to be a ranking of the countries, but I noticed that Jordan came first after the GCC countries in terms of its ability to adapt to the changes and requirements of a digital economy. How do you see our region as a whole matching up to the developed countries in terms of its readiness for digital economy?
Well, mentioning the Digital Economy Navigator is actually the baseline to see where can we leapfrog and where can we scale on a global level. We look at it more not as how we're doing in terms of more developed countries, but we look at it from a resilience perspective. How can we really look at creating our own local content and also partnering with our neighbors and other countries that helps us sustain and create a more inclusive, sustainable, and resilient digital economy that at the end will grow and will add or diversify our economies. So just an example of looking at how dependent are we now when it comes to our cell phones or when it comes to connecting our into internet. It's as important as a backbone. It's as important as water and electricity right now.
Of course.
So just because a power challenge, an outage that happened in Europe, Finland, Estonia were cut from internet. Closer to home, the unfortunate situation that we have now in Gaza. We have a whole population that is not connected. They're out of grid totally. Now, all of these get us into thinking, now, what are we doing as countries to make sure that we are resilient when it comes to our digital content and digital infrastructure? And this is where more, going to our first subject, infusing innovation, creating more innovators, giving them the tools, the infrastructure to create new technologies that can help us to sustain and create a more powerful economy is very much important, as well as the cross-border collaboration. And this is where NDCO, with the Digital Economy Navigator, this gave us a blueprint of what do we really need to work on in terms of our countries. And it showcased what are the competitive advantages in Jordan that can help in solving a challenge in Morocco, that can help solve a challenge in Pakistan, and so on?
Your Excellency, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you.
And God bless you.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Thank you all.
Thank you.